TypeScript for the new programmer. Congratulations on choosing TypeScript as one of the first language. You already made a good decision. You probably already heard that TypeScript is a flavor or variant of JavaScript. The relationship between TypeScript and JavaScript is rather unique among modern programming language. So learning more about the relationship will help you understand how JavaScript adds to JavaScript, how TypeScript adds to JavaScript. What is JavaScript? A brief history. JavaScript, also known as ECMAScript, started its life as a simple scripting language for browser. At the time it was invented, it was expected to be used for short snippets of code embedded in a web page. Writing more than a few dozen lines of code would have been somewhat unusual. Due to this, early web browser extended such code pretty slowly. Over time, Flow.js became more and more popular, and web developers started using it to create interactive experience. Web browser development responds to the increased JS used by optimizing their execution engines, dynamic compilation, and extending what could be done with it, adding APIs, which in turn made web developer use it ever more. On modern website, your browser is frequently running applications that span hundreds of thousands of lines of code. This is frequently running application that span hundreds of thousands of lines of code. This is long and gradual growth of the web, starting as a simple network or static page and evolving into a platform for rich application of all kinds. More than this, JavaScript has become popular enough to be used outside the context of browser, such as implementing JS server using Node.js. The run-anyway nature of JS makes it an attractive choice for cross-platform development. There are many developers that use only JavaScript to program their entire stack. To summarize, we have a language that was designed for quick uses and then grow to a full-fledged tool to write application which millions of lines. Every language has its own quirks, oddities, and surprises, and JavaScript humble beginning make it have many to those. Some examples: JavaScript equally operator co-persists arguments leading to unexpected behavior. JavaScript also accessing property which aren't parent. Most programming language would throw an error when the sorts of error output some would to do during compilation before any code is running. When writing small programs, such quirks are annoying but manageable. When writing application which hundreds of thousands of lines of code, these constant surprises are a serious problem. TypeScript, a static type checker. We said earlier that some language would allow the baggy programs to run at all. Detecting error in code without running it is referred to as traffic checking. Determine that's an error and what's not bad on the kinds of value being operated on is known as static type checking. TypeScript checking a program for error because before execution and does so based on the kind of value its static type checker. For example, the last example above has an error because of the type of object. Here's the error TypeScript found. A typed superset of JavaScript. How does TypeScript related to JavaScript? True, false. Syntax. TypeScript is a language what is a superset of JavaScript. JS syntax is the for legal TypeScript. Syntax refers of the way we write text to from a program. For example, this code has a syntax error because it's amazing, because it's missing a скобка. TypeScript doesn't consider any JavaScript code to be an error because of its syntax. This means you can take any working JavaScript code and put it in a TypeScript without worry about exactly how it is written. Types. However, TypeScript is typed superset, meaning that it adds a rule about how different kinds of value can be used. The early error about JavaScript about object.case height height height. Okay, object.height was not a syntax error, it is an error of using some kind of value a type is in an incorrect way. As another example, this is JavaScript code that you can run in browser and it will log a value. This synthetical legal program logs infinite. TypeScript float consider division of number by an array to be a nonsensical operator and will issue an error. It's possible you really did instead to divide a number by an array, perhaps just to see what happened, but most of the time thought this is a programming mistake. JavaScript TypeScript type checker is designed to allow correct program through while still catching as many common errors as possible. Later we'll learn about setting you can use to configure how strictly TypeScript checks your code. If you move some code from a JavaScript file to a script file, TypeScript file, you might see type error depending on how the code is written. This may be legitimate problem, which is a code or TypeScript being overly conservative. Thought this guide will demonstrate how to add various TypeScript syntax to eliminate such error. Runtime behavior. TypeScript is also a programming language that preserves the runtime behavior of JavaScript. For example, dividing by 0 in JavaScript produces infinity instead of throwing a runtime exception. As a principle, TypeScript never changes the runtime behavior of JavaScript code. This means that if you move code from JavaScript to TypeScript, it is guaranteed to run the same way even if TypeScript thinks what the code has type error. Keeping the same runtime behavior as JavaScript is foundational promise to TypeScript because it means you can easily transition between the two languages without worrying about substyle difference that might have your program stop working. Eraser types. Roughly speaking, once TypeScript compiler is done with checking your code, it erases the type to produce the resulting compiled code. This means that once your code is compiled, the resulting plain JavaScript code has no type information. This also means that TypeScript never changed, just the behavior of your program based on the type it inferred. The bottom line is that while you might see type error during compilation, the type system itself has no bearing on how your program works when it runs. Finally, TypeScript doesn't provide any additional runtime libraries. Your program will use the same standard library or external libraries as JavaScript programs, so there are no additional TypeScript specific framework to learn. Learning JavaScript and TypeScript, we frequently see the question, should I learn JavaScript or TypeScript? The answer is that you can learn TypeScript without learning JavaScript. TypeScript shared syntax and runtime behavior which JavaScript, so anything you learn about JavaScript is helping you learn TypeScript at the same time. There are many resources available for programmers to learn JavaScript. You should not ignore the resources if you are writing TypeScript. For example, there are about 20 times more Stack Overflow question staged JavaScript than TypeScript, but all of the JavaScript questions also apply to TypeScript. If you find yourself searching for something like how to sort a list in TypeScript, remember, TypeScript is JavaScript runtime, which is the compile time TypeScript checker. The way you sort is list in TypeScript is the same way to do so in JavaScript. If you find a resource and that uses TypeScript directly, that's great too, but don't limit yourself to thinking you need TypeScript specific answer for everyday question about how to accomplish runtime task. New step. This was a brief overview of syntax, the tool used in everyday TypeScript. From here you can learn some of the JavaScript fundamental we recommended is Microsoft JavaScript Resources, JavaScript Guide of the Mozilla Web Documents. Continue to TypeScript for JavaScript Programmer, read the full handbook from start to finish, explore the playground and examples.